Go ahead.
All right, all right. Welcome everyone to our bi-weekly conversation called Involuntary Conversations. It's a bi-weekly discussion that we host here for the ACAA campaign regarding the End Slavery in California Act, Assembly Constitutional Amendment 8, which is a constitutional amendment right now that we have in the legislature. And this is a campaign to end the practice of forced labor of incarcerated people, as well as the utilization of involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime. So my name is Jeronimo Aguilar. I go by Jeronimo. I go by Geronimo J. I serve as a policy analyst for legal services for prisoners with children. Also a proud member of All of Us or None, both the Sacramento and the Oakland chapters. Very, very honored to be here, honored to work on this campaign and be in the struggle with a few of my comrades that are here on our live today. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Brother John for him to give a brief introduction.
Yeah, what's going on? My name is John. I also go by John. I'm an outreach coordinator with All of Us or None, legal services for prisoners with children. I am formerly incarcerated. Also, I did 10 years in the prison system. And thank you for having me here.
All right, we'll pass it over to Brother Arturo.
Hi there. My name is Jorge Arturo Ruiz. I go by Arturo, obviously Arturo Ruiz, and I'm a proud member of All of Us or None from the Riverside chapter. And I also represent Starting Over. I spent about 7 years in the penitentiary. I got out about 1.5 years ago. So ever since I got out, I was introduced to All of Us or None, and I fell in love with the coalition. It was love at first sight, and I've been working since then.
Right on. Thank you, Brother Arturo. Yeah, All of Us or None stretches back decades now, in the movement. Really the movement to restore the civil and human rights of formerly incarcerated people and our currently incarcerated comrades that are still behind the walls, and really just do some serious reform to the criminal justice system, right? Because we all can see that there's grave injustices going on, and that our people really need we need to do something different. We need to do something different than what's been going on here in this system. And as we'll talk a little bit here briefly about in a brief moment, this is a system that's been, designed this way. And, historically, the roots go back, into the inception really of the United States, of California. And so a lot of the stuff we see today in the criminal justice system has direct ties and roots to the history of slavery and the kind of the racist and classist systems of oppression. And so before I get into that, though, I want to give you all, and I want to thank my guests. Sorry about that. I want to thank my guests here for introducing themselves. We're also going to have another guest, Takwa Bonner, who is our All of Us or None housing advocate from our Oakland chapter. He's also going to be joining us here shortly. But I wanted to give you all the status of ACA 8, the Assembly Constitutional Amendment 8, which is currently in the California legislature. It's been a 2-year bill that we introduced in 2023. It's being authored by Assemblymember Lori Wilson. Lori Wilson is the chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus. She's been a champion here for various causes and social justice, policies. And actually, before I continue, let me go ahead and let Brother Takwa here introduce himself. Brother Takwa, welcome to Involuntary Conversations.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Takwa Bonner. I'm the housing advocate for All of Us or None, which is a project of legal service for prisoners with children.
Thank you, Brother Takwa. And Brother Takwa is also directly impacted by the system of incarceration, and will be sharing his direct experience, his lived experience with involuntary servitude and forced labor while being incarcerated. But just to continue on the status of ACA 8, like I was saying, it's being authored by Lori Wilson, the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus. It's a Black Caucus priority as well for the CLBC. And so it's something that has been at the forefront of their priorities here for the last couple of years. And stretching back some years now, as this is the second time that we've tried to run this campaign. It was ACA 3 a few years ago with then Assemblymember Sydney Comlager, who since has moved on to the federal government as a congresswoman. But ACA 3 was our first crack at, trying to amend the Constitution to remove the exception to slavery, involuntary servitude. And unfortunately, we weren't successful with that effort, but we've come back with ACA 8, and I think we've learned a whole lot of lessons since then. We've been able to navigate the California Assembly, and so we not only got through the Assembly, we actually got through the Assembly in a resounding fashion. We got unanimous support from every single Democrat in the Assembly. We also were able to get votes from, I believe, a handful of Republicans, probably 4 or 5 of them. Don't quote me on the numbers there, but we definitely got some Republicans also to vote on ACA 8 in the Assembly. And so it was a really very historic vote with the amount of support that we were able to get. And that's just a testament to all the work of organizations like ours. We're one of the core sponsors of ACA 8, along with ACLU of Northern California, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, ARC, Courage, Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice. There's another org, excuse me for forgetting the name, ASAP as well, I believe is another core, or not I believe, is another core member, as well as the Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition. And so we have some really strong organizations at the forefront of this campaign. And we're really, really excited to hopefully finally end and remove the exception to slavery, the exception to involuntary servitude, I should say. And so we got to the Assembly, like I mentioned. We're in the Senate now. And so where it's at right now is that we need to get through the Senate by June 27th in order to qualify this constitutional amendment for the November ballot. And I say the November ballot because we're working on this as a constitutional amendment, which means that it doesn't go to the governor for signature like many legislative efforts do. This is a constitutional amendment which would go straight to the voters. And so our success in the legislature doesn't mean that we're able to change the Constitution. All it does is that it gives the voters, all of you, the opportunity as California voters to weigh in on the issue of slavery and involuntary servitude and the use of involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime. So before I kick it to some of my brothers here to talk about their lived experience, I also want to talk about the wording in California's Constitution, because it's a little bit unique to other states. And this is a campaign, y'all, that's really nationwide. Through All of Us or None and LSPC, we launched a campaign called Abolish Bondage Collectively, ABC. And so we're on the national front as well through ABC National. We're working in states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, St. Louis, Missouri, Louisville, Kentucky, just to name a few. And so we know that there's other efforts, and we applaud the others that are at the forefront as well, working at the national level to amend other states, also to amend the federal Constitution. We're all working towards the same goal here. And, All of Us Are None, I'm really proud of the progress that we've made in building up, our ABC campaign. And I say that because every state is unique in their Constitution. So, some states, it doesn't mention slavery and involuntary servitude, like, for instance, Pennsylvania. And so they just defer to the 13th Amendment in the federal Constitution. That doesn't mean that they don't need a constitutional amendment, because they obviously are still practicing forced labor of incarcerated people. That is something that is happening nationwide. Forced labor of incarcerated folks. Some states pay people for their work, some states don't. None of them compensate them fairly. And so in California, we actually have slavery is technically prohibited in Article 1, Section 6 of the California Constitution. However, it says involuntary servitude is prohibited with the exception of a punishment for a crime. And so there's a separation there between slavery and involuntary servitude. And if you have been following All of Us or None, LSPC, ABC, our work for any time at all, you will see that one of our rallying cries is involuntary servitude is slavery. It's just another name for it. It's a more digestible name that the system has created to try to make it, less brutal. But in practice, it's just as brutal. It's just as oppressive and inhumane. And so we're trying to tell everybody that will listen that, involuntary servitude is slavery, right? And so I just wanted to point that out, though, in case, you'll hear the opposition sometimes bring this up and, oh, well, slavery is already, there's no exception to slavery. It's already prohibited. Involuntary servitude is not, though. And involuntary servitude, that clause and that except for punishment for a crime is what allows CDCR, our county jails, systems of incarceration. It gives them the legal right to force our incarcerated populations into labor without their consent. And basically, without their consent. I think that pretty much gives an accurate description. And so I think one of the things that, we really focus on in this campaign is to show people how real involuntary servitude is, slavery of incarcerated people, and what it looks like, on a daily basis for somebody that's incarcerated. And so I'd like to kick it to my brother John, so that he could talk about, about his lived experience and how, involuntary servitude and forced labor really affected him on a personal level, mentally, physically, emotionally. I'm sure that it affected him on all levels. So for him to really make it real for those of you that are watching. So go ahead, brother John.
Yeah, thank you, Geronimo. For myself, me coming into the system, it started when I was 16 years old, and I caught a case when I was 16. They certified me as an adult, and I ended up getting sent to state prison. And the one of the first things you do when you get in there, you're getting stripped down, and then it's kind of like it gives you the feeling of an auction block. Everybody getting stripped down, and then next thing, not too long later, they're assigning you a job. And just me being young at the time also, it wasn't that I didn't want to work because I didn't have any money on my books or anything. So, I was looking forward to anything where I could try to get some type of food or something. So I was assigned a job, and like I said earlier, I ended up doing 10 years. So after my first job, I was assigned another job. I had many different jobs at different prisons, from kitchen work, yard labor work, working in warehouse type places in the prison. And then eventually I even ended up getting sent to a fire camp, and fighting fires on the outside, wildland fires. But all the way through during these jobs I had, you can't, there's times you may get sick or just anything. There was a time when I got a call and I had to go to the chaplain, found out my grandma died. If you're trying to grieve, you can't refuse that job because you're going to get, there's going to be consequences for you not working. So you're being forced to work. If you sick, it doesn't matter. It's like, you have to go to work. So you're being forced to work. And then not to even mention me thinking I was going to be able to eat off these jobs. There was none of that. Wasn't really getting paid. So, but just the feeling of not even having a choice to work or not. And then me being young as well, I rather would have went to, get more schooling and learn some more things that from my future for when I got out, because like I said, I was 16 when I went in. So there was a lot of other things that I rather would have done besides working some of these jobs. And even when I got to the fire crew, once I got out, I wasn't even able to get a job as a firefighter, and I fought on a fire crew for almost 3 years. So it's just, even so, once I got out of prison, even before getting out, it just gave me like a just a different view of the workplace, because it's like working wasn't something, it was something that I felt forced to do. It wasn't something that I wanted to get out and do. So it wasn't something that helped me being forced to work. And also I missed a lot of years of being able to get education on different levels. So that was just kind of my experience of, being an involuntary servant, which they say involuntary servitude, but that's basically slavery. You're being forced to work. You have no autonomy over your own body. You have no choice, because if you refuse, there's going to be consequences behind it.
Right, right. No, thank you for sharing, brother. Yeah, and I think that that context is really important around, like, because the thing is, right, when you're incarcerated, you're already in a real rough environment, obviously, right? You're in an environment where you're deprived of many rights. But when it comes to working and labor, there's certain jobs that, and I know, like, on the outside, right? Like when it comes to even those that have struggled in the United Farm Workers and all these different like labor sectors, right? Like one of the biggest things was fighting for workers' rights, for conditions, all these different things. And I think that that's really key when you talk about that while you're incarcerated, like your punishment. And when you're sentenced in court, it's not like they're telling you, all right, you're sentenced to 10 years, Mr. Cannon, and you're sentenced to 10 years of hard labor.
Yeah.
That's like, you would think that that's kind of old school thinking of how they used to do things way back in the day. But in reality and practice, that's really, really what's happening to folks. And like what you said about you losing your family member, I think you said your grandmother. I think that's like, we got to remember that these are human beings that are behind these walls. These are our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our cousins, our sons, our daughters, like our loved ones, and they have emotions, they have hearts, man. They have feelings like anybody else. And I think that when you see that type of kind of emotionless, heartless, treatment of folks, like, okay, you lose a loved one and you don't even get the chance to even grieve or even try to go through that process, because it's just like, nah, man, you're here as a commodity. You're here to work, and that's it. I think that really kind of, like, to me, first thing I think of is it just like totally undermines rehabilitation, right? So could you just speak to like how that aspect of it doesn't, like, I know you touched on it a little bit, but like really drilling down into like how that doesn't support rehabilitation, like, yeah.
It definitely doesn't support rehabilitation, because it didn't help me in any way. And just like that situation when my grandma passed, at the time, she was the only person I had contact to on the outside. And so, like, for years, and when I found this out, I had to go to work in the morning in the kitchen. And just like me not even being in the right mental space, which if I had an opportunity to give me some days to grieve, but I ended up getting in a fight that next day, just not being in a right mental space inside the kitchen while I was working. And that right there cost me more time having to do on the inside. So it's like you don't get the option to take off, or if you're working on a fire and you might have a crew boss, and he might not, you don't feel he's adequate, he hasn't adequately trained you enough, and these fires are dangerous. And it's like you see on the news, even when we're there, we're seeing people dying during wildfires. So it's scary, and it's like, if you want to, it's not like you could refuse to go out there or you're going to be getting punished for it. So it's like, regardless of what, you're having to work. So to me, that was like the whole opposite of rehabilitatives. It just gave me like just an angry look at the workforce. Like, it made me feel like I don't want to give my labor up. Like, it's making me feel like any type of labor is slavery now. So it took me a while to even get over that, to where it's like, okay, now I have the choice. And that's why, like, even after getting out, I'm glad that I landed where I landed, because even looking at any other type of job or anything was just like real negative to me. So me landing here and actually being able to like fight for stuff I believe in, it just, it's a blessing.
Right on, brother. Right on, man. Yeah, I think another aspect, like you said, it's public safety too, and so I mean, I think that we hear a lot of folks that like are opposed to this issue, or they think that, oh, they just want to like they just want incarcerated people to not have to do anything, and they don't care about anything, in that aspect. And really what we're trying to do is support rehabilitation. We're trying to support public safety. I think that when you have people in positions where they're doing things that they actually want to do, and they're choosing how to go about their rehabilitation, right? Like, you know what? I'm going to choose this job because I have a passion, or I feel like this is going to help me in my journey. I think that could go a seriously long way in helping recidivism and helping folks, really feel whole. And that's going to help them not reoffend once they come home, and so,
If
and even help the public safety well of the incarcerated population. So, yeah, brother, I think those are some really strong points.
if I could add right
Yeah,
there,
yeah, please.
just like it's the whole thing about being able to choose, like, because I did want to work and I did want to, like, I was young, like I said, so I did want to learn things. I
Yeah.
did want to work and learn new stuff. And, I'm young and I'm still growing. So there's a lot of things I did want to learn, but it's the fact of being forced to do it. It's like if you tell a kid and you make your son play football, he's gonna hate football. If you give him the choice to play sport, he might even like football or something. Or
Right. That's
you know,
right.
you can't force somebody to do something and think that good is gonna come out of that.
That's so real, bro. That's so real, man. That's a really great point, man. Yeah, that's a really great point, because I think that that gets lost in a lot of the advocacy, right? People think that it's just like a us against them thing. And yeah, of course, there's a lot of stuff in the system and that we're trying to change. I mean, shit, I don't want to say victims, but we've been affected by this stuff in a real strong way, especially, coming from the communities where we come from. But at the same time, it's like this type of policy and any slavery would actually be the best for everyone. It would create a safer environment. It would help rehabilitation, it would help public safety. So yeah, brother, I really, really appreciate them points, man. I want to shift over to our brother Arturo to talk about his experience as well, and him to share some of his perspectives on this issue. So go ahead, brother Arturo.
Thank you. And I think my experience was a little bit different, but at the same time similar to some of the things that Brother John mentioned. For me, it wasn't until like the last couple years in my sentence when they actually gave me a job, and the job wasn't anything that I was looking for. They gave me something that was completely like in left field. It was some sort of I had to go to a different yard, and every day they had to like strip you down, and it was just like a mission to get there. And it was like the whole day. And at the time I was going to college. I was taking college courses. And for me, like Brother John said, that the college work was important and vital in my rehabilitation process. So that's when I started, I started connecting the dots as to my dysfunction, because I was very dysfunctional when I caught my case, as far as my personal life, as far as my choices, my life choices. So that's when I started reading more and doing my college work. I actually like fell in love with the work again, with my college work. Then they hit me with hey, you have a docket to go to work. And I said, how does that make sense? I'm taking like 5 classes, 6 classes at some point, which is like 18 units or something. And I said, it's almost impossible to do it when you send me to work all day. and I come home and I just want to sleep. Like
Mm.
it's very difficult. So I ended up writing I don't know if I 602, I don't remember. My memory is not the best. Because I remember writing to, I don't know if it was a warden or 602, and they said, they wrote back to me and said, look, you don't have a choice. Either you go to work or you get a 602. So I looked on the Title 15, and it says, if you're enrolled in a college program, that is your work. So I cited that part of the Title 15, and they still
Mm.
said, look, you stay home, we're gonna write you up. And I said, well, write me up then. And right away they wrote me up. That was the only write-up I had in 7 years. And
Wow.
yeah, and I got into some real trouble, like, and not because I'm a troublemaker, but because I'm a paisano, I don't have any tattoos, and I'm not really affiliated with anybody. So people would think, oh, this guy's a freaking paisano, let's just push him over, and it wouldn't go well for them. So I got into a lot of trouble, like physically, but I got wrote up it was just one day I missed. It wasn't like, I told the guy, look, I'm actually sick today. I actually had a final and I hadn't done it. It had to be turned in. So it wasn't something that I was trying to cause problems.
Right.
It was for rehabilitation purposes that I
Mhm.
stayed home. So when they wrote me up, and it was like a year before my release date. So I was awaiting the response from the warden or from the 602, the 602 I had written. So I said, you know what, I'm not gonna get a 115 because I thought that they would give me more time, which they do, but I don't know how it works really. So I was scared of missing again. So I was able to manage and navigate my college work, as well as 8 hours worth of work. And as far as the pay, I don't ever remember getting paid because they would give me like maybe $28, and they would cut it in half because I owed restitution.
Mm.
So I would work for maybe like $12 a month or something. So I'm saying I'm making reference to the money because when I came out, they only gave me $200. So I started thinking, even then, I said, what am I gonna do with $200? Like, I worked all this time.
Mm.
I would think I would get at least 500, or at least something that was substantial for my reentry process.
Right.
So when you guys when we talk about involuntary servitude, I feel that if we got paid a prevailing wage, even if it's a federal prevailing wage, I feel that we would be more equipped financially to make a successful reentry.
Hmm.
And as far as my experience inside the prison, I learned my lesson right away. They gave me what they call an administrative write-up, which is like a warning.
Right.
They didn't give me a 115. I think it's like a 108 or something. I don't remember what it was. So they had me sign it and said, look, if you miss again, we're gonna hit you with a 115. So even when I would get sick, I would go sick, and I would tell the professor, look, I'm really freaking like sick. Like I don't know what to tell you, but if you want me to stay here, I'll stay here. So going back to what John said, like it's it's not conducive to when you force somebody to go work for, I think it was some shop that I had to help the students with stuff, and it wasn't doing anything for me for my rehabilitation process.
Mm.
And there was always fights. There was always basically, I felt like they were trying to set me up for me to catch another case. And it was like walking on eggshells for me when I would go to work. And of course, I'm not scared of work. I love working. I actually begged them to let me go to the store, the kitchen, And obviously I wrote for them to let me go to fire camp and nothing.
Mm.
So that's how it was different from John. Like they never really gave me those jobs. But the one job they gave me at the end, basically they wanted me to stop my college work and focus 100% on something that I wasn't benefiting from.
Mm.
And I didn't have a choice really because $12 a month, I didn't really need the money. I mean, not that $12 I didn't need. I mean, I needed like a lot more.
Right.
So that is my the extent of my story. It wasn't something that basically they never really helped me with anything. I navigated my everything on my own. And it was very difficult for me to navigate work and college work.
Mm.
I mean, I had like a 3.8. I didn't have a problem, but it was just very difficult
Yeah.
to go to work all day. And obviously you don't get paid. Like I said, I think they paid me 8 cents an hour.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like for me it was like a slap on the face because the write-up and that was it. Like I feel that those people that are facing life and they have to go to the board, they're the ones that are the most affected because they can't have a write-up. So
Right.
I feel for them. So that is in a nutshell, that is my story.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing, Arturo, some of your story. I mean, I think the main theme I hear is just that it's the way that labor is set up inside, it's counterproductive to rehabilitation, you know? And I think that for too long, and again, and that's why a lot of people would say, like, we hear a lot of this stuff as far as, folks that really don't understand the issue, that it's almost like hyperbole when we say slavery. Like, come on, man, this isn't like, they had the plantation days and, that was slavery. This isn't the same thing. But when you really, really look at it closely and you look at the dynamics of who's benefiting from the system, as it's rolled out, who's benefiting from it, who has all of the power, how is it not? You know what I mean? It's that same kind of relationship between the guy, in back in the day, an actual human being that owned another, but in this case, it's a system that is forcing people into a situation where it doesn't benefit the people doing the labor at all. Yet the labor that you were doing, I'm sure, was benefiting CDCR or whoever you were working for in a major way. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got hundreds, if not thousands of people doing them jobs. So, and then also the fact that, I mean, I think that your story is especially like powerful when it comes to this, when you take into the account, like, you not working was because you were trying to better yourself. You were
Right.
really trying to, like, hey man, I'm really trying to rehabilitate. I'm going to college. Because it reminds me of another sister story, Alicia, who recently came home as well. And this sister was asked to get her education, right? She asked to be put in a position to be able to pursue her education. And she had a really low, like, pre-high school education when she went in. She said that she got up to, like, I think like 8th grade or 9th grade level is what she scored. I forget on what they call the test or the scoring or whatever. But as soon as she hit that level, they were like, okay, that's good enough. We're gonna go ahead and put her in hard labor. And she started doing like construction and stuff. And she was like, I'd rather like continue. Like it's my first time I've gone to school. Like, I'm actually getting to high school level. Like, I'm catching up to where I should have probably been, where the education system failed me. And we have the opportunity to kind of like bridge that gap, but instead the labor is like priority. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what you just mentioned. The reason why I was into not only college, but also I developed an attachment to learning about I went in for domestic violence, and I actually started taking courses on my own, about domestic violence and batters courses and stuff. So I got pretty much hooked on the literature. So I wasn't just taking college courses. I was also learning about how to function in society with females, because
Mm.
I got in trouble because of a female, and obviously my dysfunctional behavior with them. So I had my girl at the time sending me like books about how to be a good boyfriend, how to be a good husband, how to be a good father.
Right.
And so I was really into my rehabilitation process, and I'm very thankful that I did that. But those are that is the main reason that I wanted to stay in my behind, because there was really the work that they did, like you said, wasn't conducive to me, um to my rehabilitation process. It wasn't doing anything for me. If anything, it was putting me in a very risky, volatile situation with a bunch of people that were,
Mm.
like John said, upset because of many moving parts that are going on in their lives. So you're with a bunch of people, and everybody comes to work with something going on. So
Yeah.
there's always fight. There's always something, and I'm not scared of fighting or violence. It just I was on my way out,
Yeah.
and I got hit with that. I think it's a 127. I don't remember what the form was that I signed, but yeah, just to corroborate your information, that your statement, it what I was doing my own rehabilitation process, and I fell in love with it, and they try to stop that. They
Mm.
try to stop that. So that was my story. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
brother. Yeah, no, no, no. Thank you, hermano, for sharing, man. Again, and I think, yeah, I think that's what another thing that's really, really missed in this campaign and the advocacy is like, again, what we're putting on the table is not simply to change the Constitution. I mean, yes, that's a major part of it. It's to give individuals the right to consent, right? And John pointed this out too, as far as like how important having that choice would be, as far as like restoring somebody's dignity. A lot of people are in incarceration or end up in the system because of a lack of feeling like they lost their dignity or they lost their humanity or nobody cares about that. You know, a lot of trauma, a lot of those issues that we all have dealt with, whether it's at home, in the community, coming from socioeconomic kind of, you know, rougher communities. And so the rehabilitation process should be kind of like a process of making somebody whole and dignifying somebody again. And when you force somebody and you take away that dignity from them, and really it's just like, hey, you're just a commodity. And I don't care if you lost, you know, your loved one. I don't care if you're trying to finish up your school. I could give a damn. What's key and what's supreme here is the dollar and us making this money off of you. It really makes it hard for us to look at CDC. I know a lot of people still call it CDC because they haven't earned that R. Because
Well,
exactly the
it's
behavior we're talking about. Right.
revolving.
Exactly. Exactly. And so thank you so much, brother. I wanna pivot over to our brother Takwa to talk about his powerful story as well. Because I know that he has a lot of experience to share as well. So brother Takwa, go ahead and share what you'd like to share about this issue.
All right. So the first time that I experienced involuntary servitude, um, I just received my GED in another prison. And because we spent like 6 months out the year locked up, my points was able to drop. And then I was shipped out to a new prison. So when I got to this new prison, I went and saw a counselor, and I told the counselor exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't want to continue my education. And then, maybe a week later, I received a ducat to go work outside to pick up paper.
Mm.
And so when I went outside for the job, You know, you see dudes walking around the prison yard throwing paper, just throwing shit, you know, eating the ice cream, just throwing the rest on the ground. And I was like, I'm not picking that shit up. I'm not degrading myself like that, right? And so I just went and worked out. I just got on the iron pile and started working out. And so the correction officer who was my supervisor, came out and said, "Hey, man, you ain't supposed to be working out during your work hours." Blah, 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 blah. I said, "Okay, cool, no problem." As soon as he left, I went right back working out. Then they locked me up. Right? They confined me to my cell, which is called what was that? Confined to quarters, right? CTQ. And so when I went in, after they escorted me off the yard and into the cell, they wouldn't allow me to shower. So this is part of the punishment, right? So I go inside the cell and I shower inside the cell. You know, we have hot pots that you heat up hot water with, and that's how I showered. And then that's when I got my second write-up. It's because now they telling me I'm flooding the tier with water, right? So I got another write-up. But the biggest punishment I received for being forced to not working is that I got a letter from my mom's. And inside the letter, she explained to me that my daughter had got almost all A's on a report card for the first time. My daughter was so excited to share this with me during our visit, but they denied my visit. And so, yeah, that should get me emotional. So so after that, after I received a letter, I wrote moms back. And I told moms that, all right, I'm gonna go out here and pick this paper up so I can see y'all for a minute. So I started picking up the paper. Well, before then, not only did they not allow me to shower, they restrict me from using the phone. So, you know, it was punishment on top of punishment. So one day, so when I went out there and started picking up paper, I was able to get a visit from mom. So she came and visited me, and I just told her I'm finna go through this battle because this is gonna be our last visit for a while. And you know, mom's essential. Anybody in the family who want to know anything about me will call mom. So when every time moms call everybody, tell everybody don't come visit me, right? Because I'm in a battle for my education. And so you know, and so the battle continued. So after the visit, I told you know the correction officer, and when they opened my door and told me to go out there and pick up the paper, and you know, I told them to do something, you know, watch my language because there might be some babies on here, but you know,
yes, sir.
so I continue to refusing to go outside and pick up paper to degrade myself, you know.
Right.
And so of course I went back there. I got confined back to quarters, restricted from the phone calls. And then after months and months after this is going on, you know, of course, I have a stack of write-ups. So, you know, when you go with 20-something write-ups to the board of parole hearings, you know, of course, they're going to deny you parole.
Right.
So that's punishment on top of punishment.
That's right.
So after all these write-ups I received, one day a correctional counselor came and pulled me out the cell and said, "Man, what the hell is going on with you?" And so I sat him down there and I explained to him that I need education, right? I got my GED and I fell in love with education. And this is what I wanted to do. So that's when I got my break. So then that's when I was allowed to go to a vocational course. So it was a vocational electric course. However, not just being forced to work involuntary servitude to take away my phone privileges and my shower privileges, but it tore my family apart. You know, my daughter wanted to share her moment with me in a visiting room, like, "Daddy, here, look, I got A's," right? It was big to her. And so that's when she started hating prison, and that's when she stopped coming to visit me, right? Not because she didn't love me, because the treatment they had to go through to come see me through the prison system.
Wow, brother. Wow. That's very powerful, man. I appreciate you sharing, bro. I think that what you just shared, bro, it hits so many levels. As far as I think things that those that don't really understand this issue, either they haven't experienced it themselves or they don't have nobody they love that's been close enough to it, you know what I mean? Or that's been experienced it themselves, they haven't been close enough to the issue, really misses is that the effect and I think we've been talking about this whole time, the effect that it had on John, on Arturo, on you. You know, I've had a lot of family that's been inside, and I could talk to this next piece around how that treatment and that inhumane, you know, that inhumane oppression affects the family structure. And when it affects the family structure, it's like a ripple effect, you know. It affects the community. As it affects the community, it affects society. You know what I mean? It just keeps going further and further out. And I think that, yeah, bro, you sharing that is really, 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 really important for us to include in this issue and this advocacy around when you know, there's a saying, rising tide lifts all boats. You know what I mean? When you raise the flora, it helps everybody out, right? Even those that aren't directly, you know, impacted by it. And so,
And if I may, real quick,
please,
bro,
brother, please,
because
please.
it goes much deeper than that, right? Because when you can't see your family, when you torn apart from your family, you
Yeah,
get the mentality like, well, fuck the world, fuck all
yeah,
y'all, right? Excuse my language.
yeah. Nah, that's
And then that puts you in a suicidal by cop mode of thinking, right? And so yeah, so you know, it goes way deeper than that.
that part, bro. That part. And so I think for people that don't understand this issue, to understand the different ways, right? And because when we say forced labor and we talk about involuntary servitude, aka slavery, they punish you by giving you, one of you mentioned write-ups, whether it's a 115 or, like Jorge said, a different type of write-up, 127 or whatever it is, but different levels of, right, administrative write-ups. They take away privileges. Brother Takwa just mentioned how they take away your visits and your contact with your family. This also impedes your ability to pursue your education and really, really pursue your rehabilitation. I mean, Brother Takwa, you said something that really stood out to me too. And you said that you were in a battle for your education. I mean, how could somebody that's incarcerated in a system that supposedly talks about all this hoopla about rehabilitation and this and that, but you got folks that really feel they're having a battle just to try to pursue their education and rehabilitation? I mean, that is, to me, is just mind blowing, bro.
Brother, let me say this real quick about my education, right? I was in a bad position educationally wise, right? I mean, I was so undereducated, and I'm not blaming my family. I'm not blaming the Oakland Public School. What I'm just saying is that, man, I was so messed up in education. The very first letter I wrote when I got incarcerated was to my mother, and I spelled her name wrong, right? And so, and I remember this OG up at the law library, right? I'm up there and I'm telling this dude behind the counter, was the clerk, I'm telling him what was taking place in my trial, where this jury alternate went into the jury chamber while the jury was deliberating and telling them he brought in some gun paraphernalia, some books, you know what I mean? And so I'm telling this to the clerk, and he get, you know, they get real excited in the law library. He said, brother, you finna go back to court. We finna get you back in, right? And they slapping law books on the table. He's saying, read this and read that, right? And this OG creeped up behind me. He said, hey, excuse me, young man. He said, you can't read that, huh? And I was like, nah, I can't read it. And he was like, man, you never get out of prison until you learn how to read and write. Right? And so that's when my battle for my education could started.
Wow, bro. Wow. That's it right there.
Yeah, yes. And I would just like to proudly say that during this battle, it was a hell of a battle, but during this battle, I was able to get my GED.
Yes, sir.
Right? I was able to get 3 electrical trades. I completed an electrical apprenticeship program. I got my associate's degree in social science. I became a drug and alcohol counselor, and so on and so on.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a battle for my education. It was a hell of a battle to whereas I had put my life on the line.
Props to you, brother. Props to you, man. And the power of education, bro, is really, really poignant in all this as well, bro. We only got 5 minutes left, y'all. But I really, really appreciate you all sharing your stories. What I wanted to take this last few minutes is to talk about how can the public get activated? Like, how do we make this a reality, y'all? We all, I think, shared really, really strong points on why This needs to change. The fact that this is tearing up our families, it's tearing up our communities, it's tearing up us as people, you know, inside. I didn't have a chance, but I really wanted to talk as well about kind of the historical context of this and the fact that 70% plus of incarcerated people have African or indigenous blood, right? And when you look at the history of slavery and how and how California inherited California from Mexico and inherited a slave labor of indigenous peoples and later African peoples, this same population has been enslaved, you know, throughout the whole history of California. And so how do we change this though, y'all? Like, how do we make this a reality? And so if I could just get you all to give your kind of brief spiel on like, how do we make this a reality? I'll start off by saying we need to education, bro. That's like the key as well. We need to get this out. But go ahead, brother. Talk while you look like you ready to roll, big dog.
Yeah. What I was going to say and what I learned during the housing campaign is that we have to humanize the situation.
Right.
When we humanize the situation and we take our personal stories in front of decision makers and those who got political power, right? They can identify with me or with us, because I can guarantee you there's no person that's living in California who doesn't have a loved one who has been directly or indirectly impacted by the criminal justice system.
That's right.
And through my experience, people would, when you create a safe space by humanizing your lived experience, people will feel safe to let you know that, hey, my loved one is incarcerated as well.
That's right.
We have to do one of our biggest battles right now is to get our Asian brothers to come out and verbally tell their stories, because they still isolated right now about coming out speaking publicly about their situation, about being incarcerated. So with that, I'm gonna pass the mic. I know we short on time, and I can go.
No, it's all good, my brother. I appreciate that.
All right.
Go ahead, Arturo.
I believe, like you said, education is extremely important. I'm personally working with rising scholars at my college, and I'm starting to educate everybody there who already had lived experience, so they already know what goes on. But it goes further than that. We want to get a campaign going where we go and educate the rest of the student body, but also a network of friends and family.
Yes,
So
sir.
I think education is important.
Education and get the word out. Yes, sir.
But not only getting the word out, but getting the right word out.
Yeah.
The educated word. So I think that's a step in the right direction, getting other college students involved.
Yeah.
And especially those who already know and have the lived experience that we all shared.
Thank you for sharing, Arturo. Brother John.
I would say two things. One is because the bill is in the Senate right now, that people that have relationships with senators, or not even that, just kind of making it felt for those senators in your district. Each district has senators, and letting them know how important this issue is to y'all, whether that be, you know, social media or people in person. And then second, just like these two brothers said, just basically each one reach one, teach one. You know, if it's meaning something to you, reach out to a friend or family and let them know about ACAA. Let them know about this issue as much as you can. Let them know about how involuntary servitude is real and slavery is alive to this day. And that it's not just some type of hyperbole like Geronimo said. This is going on. So just each one reach one, teach one, let people know.
Salute, brother. Salute, man. Yes. 100%, bro. I want to leave everybody with some information on how to get involved. We got a website, caslave.com. You could also visit our website at prisonerswithchildren.org. If you just Google like All of Us or None, we have Facebook, IG, Twitter, all of those things. You can get tapped in that way. We also have ABC, I believe, Abolish Bondage Collectively. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to get involved, y'all. If you look up the End Slavery in California Act, I believe there's a website there as well. Please, please, please get engaged. Like Brother John said, we're in the Senate, so reach out to your senators. Let them know and get loud about this. Drive phone calls, send emails, but at the same time, what you can do is reach out to your local church, reach out to your local schools, talk to the person that's walking their dog, man. Like really, it's really gonna take that type of outreach because this is gonna go to the voters. So, what would really be a shame, right, is for us to put all this effort and for us to get out of the legislature and then end up going to the voters and not getting it across. So we really need to get loud. Everybody needs to be talking about this issue. Right now is election season. So, it's high time for right now them to talk about how immigrants are the problem, how all of us that are committing crimes are the problem, all of this BS, man. But in reality, these type of issues that we're talking about are go a long way towards restoring our society and really supporting public safety. Go ahead, brother. Talk about.
Yeah, real quickly, right? So when I'm in public and I'm telling individuals about ACA8, one important fact that I always have to tell them is that we are not talking about removing punishment out of prison. We're talking about removing slavery that's hiding behind punishment.
That's right. That's right. That part, brother. That part. All right, family. Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in to Involuntary Conversations. Another way that you can get involved is continuing to tune in to these conversations and discussions that we have. We do these bi-weekly. Share it, repost, like, subscribe to our pages, all of those things, y'all. Get involved. My name again is Jeronimo. Brother John, Arturo, thank you, Takwa. Thank you, Brother Lawrence, for helping in the background and helping getting us all on the tech side of things squared away. We'll end with the All of Us or None chant, y'all, before we wrap this thing up. So everybody come off mute. All of us
or none.
Todos
Oh,
Unidos.
Oh, come on, y'all. We got to do better than the todos or nadie. 1, 2, 3. Todos
or
Nadie.
All right, y'all.